You're listening to Market the Brew, a leading resource for promoting and marketing craft beer. Join in as we share with you, straight from the source, tools and strategies craft brewers from around the country are using right now to achieve significant success. We have shared stories from many accomplished brewers whose journey started with a homebrew kit they received as a gift. Many can still remember the first beer they brewed. And like today's guest, they kept a journal of all the beers they've brewed since receiving that first kit. All have taken different but similar paths in their careers to get to where they are today. Our guest is still at the beginning of his journey, building big beers from his small but growing home brewing system. From family and friends serving as beer tasters to eventually becoming brewing assistants and servers at local beer festivals. Today's guest has a small group of friends that has stayed together since those early days of brewing, helping his small brewing operation grow. Each year, he tries to get into more beer festivals. He relates that most are reluctant to agree to let him serve, but most are surprised when people start talking about how good his beers are. All have invited him back to serve his beers at their festivals in the future. But like every home brewer, you lose money brewing for festivals because as a home brewer, you can't charge for your beer. So our guest, like many before him, is working on his business plan, keeping a list of potential investors and building a fan base until he can eventually build his own brewery. But before we start the podcast, a quick reminder that the Market the Brew podcast is available at marketthebrew.com on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and iHeartRadio Podcast, as well as other popular podcast sites. The video of this and other episodes will be available on the Promote the Brew YouTube channel for you to watch or listen. We hope that you will join us. Share these episodes with your family and friends. Now, find a comfortable place to sit, grab a glass of your favorite beer, kick back and relax, and listen in as Daniel and Travis chat with homebrewer Tyler Sallee, owner of Nosey Neighbor Brewing Company, as he shares his brewing journey to date and his plans for the future. Cheers.
Hey there, Tyler. It's nice to have you on the show today.
Hey, thanks for having me.
So I'll start by asking, who are you and how did you come up with your brewery name?
Yeah, so we're Nosey Neighbor Brewing. Currently, we are home brewers, so we don't have a location. That's probably the number one question that we get. So I'll just kind of take that right away and let people know that. But we started back in 2018. So it's been about 4.5 years now of brewing experience. As far as how we got our name, I think a lot of people have assumptions of maybe how or why. And some people, especially our neighbors, are like, was it us? You know, there's no mean story behind it or anything like that. When we started, we wanted to have a name that went with our product. And so, we were trying to think of something that was community based, something that had to do with home brewing. And we just thought the term Nosey Neighbor was kind of funny, and it applied because our dog Koa at the time, he looks through the blinds. He lets us know whenever someone's like within the vicinity of our house. And so we kind of call him the Nosey Neighbor. And he kind of is always checking out what's going on outside. So we just thought it was funny and fitting. And as we meet people, it seems like they have some sort of connection to like, oh, I know a Nosey Neighbor. So it's kind of fun.
And then how long have you been brewing and what made you start your own brewing company?
Yeah, so we've been brewing for 4.5 years now. What started, I guess it started with my wife getting me a brewing kit for Christmas back in Christmas of 2017. And we did our first batch that January. So like not very, long after that. And it was me and my wife. At that point, it was an extract batch, in the kitchen where all brewing happens initially. And we just decided that we always wanted to have a name behind it. I didn't want it to just be like Tyler's Homebrew. So we just decided like right away, hey, even if it's just for fun, it's nice to have a name behind it so people can recognize it. And it's a way just to be a little bit more creative than, just a little bit more of a generic homebrew name. So we're not fully a company yet, but at this point, that's where we're at. And we wanted to be able to just build the brand while we were prepping for that. So
then how much beer do you produce and how much is just for events?
Yeah. So we produce small batches. Up until recently, it was about 5 gallons per whatever batch we were doing.
Yeah.
So the nice thing is that it allows us to do a lot of different styles and kind of go through it pretty quickly to keep things fresh and interesting. For events, it really depends on the event. Some events will tell you like, hey, we only want you to bring 2 beers. Or they might say it's open to whatever you want to bring. And so we've brought 2 beers to events, so that'd be about 10 gallons. We've also brought 6 different beers to festivals, when we really just want to kind of show what we can do. And so we like to be able to bring as much as we want, because then people get to choose, and we're all about that. So up until recently, we just upgraded our equipment. So that allows us to be able to do some bigger batches, and be a little bit more creative with like a split batch. So we can do some bigger ones and then make variations off of that, which has been fun. It's just, so up until recently, it was 5, now it can be 15.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. And how can people get their hands on your beer?
Yeah, so we get this question a lot too.
Right.
We can't sell. I think we'll
Mhm.
talk about this maybe a little bit later regarding homebrew, but
Yeah.
we're at the point where we can't sell yet, but we can be at events and festivals and stuff like that. So right now, the two best ways to kind of be able to taste our beer is to follow us on Instagram. First of all, that's our main place that we kind of market what we're doing.
Mhm.
And you can see basically we're posting anytime that there's a new beer that we put out. There's a picture of it or a video or some sort of post. So people, if they're interested, they could reach out, and if they're close enough, and every once in a while we might just give out a bottle or whatever. But the festivals and events, we always post where we're going to be and when, try to give people at least a month's heads up, so that they can plan to attend if they want. And then as the event gets closer, we kind of market what we're going to bring and try to get people excited. So
That's awesome. And I've seen some of your names for these beers, and they're very creative. How do you decide, or where does your inspiration come for what styles to make and how to name them?
yeah, so we can talk about the styles first. My goal is always to try to brew as many different styles and variations as I possibly can, because right now as a home brewer, I don't have to worry about people not buying my stuff, right? As a brewer, a professional brewer, you kind of have to brew what people are going to buy, or maybe like your flagship stuff, because you need to make sure it stays on tap. For me, I can kind of go wherever I want with it. So I try to just have a lot of different styles, because it's good practice for me and experience, but also it's just fun. So as far as inspiration goes with that, I would say I don't really have to look very far. Milwaukee and Wisconsin in general is full of awesome breweries. And I'll be the first to admit that most of our stuff isn't original. It's creative, but it's not original. Craft beer in and of itself, you see a lot of similarities with what's being brewed, what's hot, what's trending. And so we try to keep up and be able to just practice with what is current. And so we use that as inspiration a lot of times to be able to just make our own little tweaks on things, to make it our own. Also, my wife is pretty like creative in giving me different challenges along the way. So if we have like an event coming up, we'll have like a discussion about what we want to do, or she'll give me lots of great ideas. There's times where I feel like her creativity is far beyond my brewing capabilities currently. So I'm like, hey, great idea, but we're going to hold off on that one. So yeah, she's full of inspiration, and that just keeps things fresh and fun. So.
And that's nice. You get to try all the different styles whenever you choose to try.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And then as far as the names go, again, it's just kind of discussion with my wife. We also have a group of really like close core friends that are invested in Nosey Neighbor as well. And so they join brew days, they pour at events with us. They come over, they taste, try the beer. And so we'll have discussions of like, what should we call this? What would be a great name? So really it's a collaboration between, probably 10 people for some of these names. It's just not me and my wife, but it's really cool to just make it kind of like an inner circle of friends type creation. And when you put your heads together, great names come out, or it gives you inspiration and you're like, oh, I can go with that. And then
It's a fun hobby.
yeah, for sure.
So Travis and I have been lucky enough to try several of your beers at different festivals, and we have our favorites. I think mine is probably the sour that you make. It's 5 o'clock somewhere.
Okay.
Being a Kenny Chesney fan and a sour fan, it really speaks to me at these festivals. But which beer of yours is your favorite?
Yeah, that is a tough question. I actually had to process that for a while, because I was like, as time goes on, you kind of forget all the beer you brewed, to be honest, as you're just kind of constantly cranking out new stuff. So I looked back in my brewing software that I use and was like, what did I even brew? You know, just like so recent, just focusing on that stuff. I look back in the last 3 years, we brewed 50 different beer styles and variations.
Oh
Wow.
my gosh.
So I was like, whoa, I didn't realize it was that much. So there's like a lot of choices in there. And it's really hard to choose. But if I was just to go within like the last year, just to make it a little bit more simple on myself, I would say over the winter time. So again, I'm kind of a seasonal beer drinker. I'm not somebody that's just going to be dedicated to IPAs all year long. Over the winter, I brewed like a 12.5% imperial stout. That was, again, we did a split batch, and we did like a French toast version, and that turned out really, really good. So like in the dead of winter, having that was a very, it was just very good and enjoyable. So that was probably my favorite darker beer, like maybe more of a winter seasonal. And then I just love in the summer, we put out another sour that we call Every Day I'm Crumbling. And and so kind of get the play on words there. But it's a raspberry crumble sour, and it's just really enjoyable. It's got a lot of different flavor nuances to it, but it's just light and fruity. And so during the summer, that's a really good one, probably one of my favorites.
Well, if you see this beer out at beer festivals, make sure you get it right away, because it does tap, and you'll be unfortunately unable to drink them at the end of the event. If you wait too long.
That tends to happen.
So what ways are you marketing your brewery? How are you getting your name out being a home brewer?
Yeah, right now, really social media is probably the biggest thing that we do. We're pretty active on Instagram. That's our main hub. Right now, it's the only social media platform that we really use. We've talked about getting on Facebook and stuff, just because friends and family are more on that than Instagram. TikTok is hot. I haven't downloaded TikTok. I don't even know if I want to get into that. It kind of scares me a little bit. But in order to keep up, what I've been hearing from a lot of social media professionals, especially in craft beers, that TikTok is where you need to go. So we might dabble in that. We'll see. I don't know. I have to gear myself up for that. I've never done TikTok, so it might be a personal sacrifice that I have to make. But yeah, we use social media a lot. We post our pictures of the beer. That's why we like Instagram. It's such a visual app, in the fact that you can show off your product. You're not just like writing a blog about it or something like that. Like, they can see the end result. And a lot of the beers that we brew, have like fun colors or variations, or like you said, the labeling and the names, just being able to draw people's attention and kind of just show that creativity side is really important for us. So through Instagram, we're able to show our product, but also just engage with people. We love making friends. Obviously, like, we've connected with you guys a couple times, but just making friends in the beer community and being able to bounce ideas off of people, get their thoughts, just go out and drink other breweries' beer together. And again, it's all an opportunity to learn and kind of grow for brewing, but also just the community itself. And so we see it as connection and also kind of showing what we can do. So that's the social media side. And then obviously there's the festivals. That's probably the most rewarding part of what we do, is being at these festivals, being able to see people face to face and interact with them, and be able to give them our beer and immediately get feedback. You don't have to wait for a review later, or you don't have to hope somebody thinks it's good. Like, you'll know right away. Either they're like, this is really good, or maybe they wander off, and you kind of like maybe can see them from a distance. We're watching because we always want to. I don't care if someone says that they don't like it. I would rather just know, So we like that, but also it's just the connection of people remembering who we are. Being invited back to festivals is really awesome. And so we enjoy that, and people just remembering like, oh, you were here last year. We're so excited that you're back. So that's probably our other piece right now, letting the beer speak for itself, us being there to be welcoming and kind and all of that. But ultimately they're going to remember us because the beer was good. So that's our goal in kind of being at those festivals and marketing our product.
So as a home brewer, what are the distribution laws compared to like a home brewer to a brewery? Is there an ABV cap? And then is there a limit on how much you can produce?
Yeah, I actually had to look some of that up because as far as distribution, first of all, we don't sell our beer, so we don't distribute anywhere.
Okay.
For me, it would just like, that's just an additional cost that I would have to do. Even if it was allowed, I wouldn't, just because of the cost involved.
Yeah.
Basically for us, it's like anybody that's local. So it's face-to-face exchange of, hey, try this, let me know what you think. People are over at our house and they'll try it, or face-to-face at events. So that's really the only way that we distribute our beer is face-to-face. It's actually it's illegal through the U.S. Postal Service to ship beer, but it's frowned upon with everybody else, and so you're not supposed to be doing that. People do still, obviously, but we choose not to. And then as far as ABV cap, that was the thing that I had to look up, because I was like, oh, that's interesting. I didn't see an ABV cap for homebrew in Wisconsin. Okay. There are in some states, but not in Wisconsin that I saw. The way that we brew and kind of the system that we have, like 12.5 is probably as high as we would go, even if we wanted to go higher. But I'm not trying to make gasoline anyway. So like,
I feel like it's pretty normal.
Yeah, like I think we're comfortable with where we're at. Right. We're not gonna play that game. And then as far as I think you asked about production, right? Like,
yeah, limit of how much you can produce. Is there a limit?
So in Wisconsin, you can produce 100 gallons per person.
Okay.
Like if you're a single person living in your house, it's 100 gallons a year. Okay. If you have 2 or more people in a household, it's 200 gallons. So me and my wife, that would apply for us. It's 200 gallons a year. The nice thing about having friends and stuff is that we can brew with them, right? And so if we needed to do it, we would just brew it at their household, their equipment, all of that. But really, I did the math and I was like, in order for us to even push that, we would probably be having to brew about 40 times a year, which is like 3 weekends every month, which we're not doing. We're probably averaging 1 or 2 a month. If we're doing these festivals, it might hit that 3 mark, but it's not every single month that we're doing it. So I don't even think that we're very close at this point. But yeah, that's kind of the rules.
And it's interesting hearing about different laws from different states, just hearing how different everyone has to be.
Yeah, for sure. Every state.
I didn't get that. Could you try again?
So have you had to buy more equipment now as your business is growing?
Yeah, so we did. We just back in March, I want to say, we purchased new equipment through Spike Brewing in Milwaukee. In my opinion, it's some of the best equipment that you can get in the homebrew world, and basically like even in brewing, but mainly homebrew. They're very well known. And so we were like, we want to upgrade. We want to be able to increase not only our production, but also just like our practices and how we're brewing and what we're using. And so we decided to go with them. We're using, system that's stainless steel now, and using tri-clamps and pumps and all of that, just so that we can try to begin to move in that direction of what we ultimately want to accomplish. So it's cool. We have the ability of doing 15-gallon batches now if we would like. Typically we're not. I might if I was like collaborating with somebody else, but I don't need 15 gallons of beer.
Are you sure?
Need, yeah. So yeah, we have that opportunity. We had that opportunity to be able to upgrade, and we were excited about it. And it just ultimately allows us to be able to put out some more fun stuff for everybody. as far as like those split batches and getting a little bit more creative versus like, I really don't want to have to brew 2 days. You can brew one and then have 2 different completely different beers from that same brew day, which is kind of cool. So,
That is neat. And it gives you a lot more opportunities.
for sure.
So I'm still kind of learning about home brewing and the process, but for someone that's brand new, it sounds like there could be some challenges and some stressful events. What's one struggle of home brewing that you have found?
Yeah. So with homebrew, a lot of your processes are very manual in nature. So you're doing a lot of things by hand. Even with a small brewery, a lot of what you're doing is manual. The bigger and bigger you get with a brewery, you might have more mechanical pieces or using electronics and technology to be able to simplify and make things go smoother. But in homebrew, it's all for what I do, basically, it's all manual labor. And there's times, especially as we're getting bigger and bigger batches, things are getting heavier and heavier, and so there's times where you're like, hey, I need a little bit of help maybe on this brew day or whatever. Getting rid of the grain, we don't necessarily have a farmer that can come and take that from us right now. So that's an interesting thing to deal with as we start brewing bigger and bigger batches as well. But the other side of like a challenge that we have to overcome, I would say, is just like working against the label of a home brewer. So we're not going to lie and say we're not a home brewer, but sometimes there's a stigma with home brewing where people are like, oh, you're a home brewer, and you're like, yeah, yeah, I am. That's accurate. Just because I think, home brewers, there's a wide range of who brews out there. It's a huge hobby, which is awesome. I love seeing people love the craft and learning about it. But I think I remember you guys did an interview with Mike Dobley from Explorium, and he kind of described it, and he hit the nail on the head, I thought, where he's like, hey, there's 3 different home brewers. There's one that like they know what they're doing the research, they're putting out really good product. Then there's the ones that like, hey, you put out some good ones every once in a while, but there's inconsistency, and then there's some that probably just shouldn't brew anymore. I feel like it's accurate. And unfortunately, I think a lot of times people's first experience with a home brewer or somebody that they know at their house that's in that 3rd category, they might not always stay there. But when you start, I'm going to admit, first couple batches of mine, they weren't terrible, but they definitely weren't amazing. So that's everyone's experience. You have an excited new home brewer that's learning. And so that's their opinion of what all home brewers are. And so sometimes we kind of have to fight that stigma a little bit. We've had people at events that are just blown away that you brew this at your house,
It's so good.
So yeah, that's just another thing that we kind of have to overcome, but also embrace at the same time. So.
Mm-hmm. And a lot of the people we talk to, they always say they start as home brewers, right, and they start to educate themselves and they learn through their experience. And it's incredible to see where they started and where they are now. Yeah,
for sure. I think more and more people that are getting into craft brewing have those roots, which is really cool. It's encouraging to me. And so it's just neat to kind of see them as they make that jump and that journey to opening their own companies. And so I love that.
So what's the next event you're going to be pouring at?
Next event that we are pouring at is Milwaukee Brew Fest.
Okay.
So that is July 30th. It's downtown Milwaukee, right on the lake. It's probably the highlight of our year, just because, first of all, it's downtown, it's on the lake. The environment itself is just like, you can't beat that in the summer. Milwaukee in the summer is just awesome. So being able to be up there for that is great. We got to do it last year for the first time, which was pretty neat. And so being able to go back this year is exciting, and we're gearing up for that.
Did you have to apply to get in, or did they just kind of ask you to come back this year? Yeah.
So last year we kind of reached out to them and said, hey, can we be a part of the festival? They were open to us being there. I think maybe there was a little bit of like, okay, we don't really know who you are, but we were there. And then they reached out to us and afterwards and thanked us and said like, hey, we got a lot of positive feedback from the people that were at the festival. We really want you guys to come back this year. And so they invited us back, I think all the way back in January.
Oh, wow.
Pretty quickly. And of course we jumped on top, on the opportunity to be able to go back. And so we're super excited, and I think they are too.
Yeah. What beers can the listeners, if they're going, expect to have from Nosey Neighbor if they go?
Yeah, so we are bringing, let's see, at least 5 beers.
Okay.
We are going to have a Mexican lager that is called La Playa. And then we'll have 2 sours. So one of the sours is a key lime pie sour. And this is a new like line for us, like a series. But we're calling it I Did It for the Gram. And it's the series is gonna be like pie or desserts that have like graham cracker crust in it. So it's like I did it for the gram, but spelled like graham cracker. So that's pretty funny. Let's see. And then we are going to have an elderberry margarita sour.
Ooh.
We poured that one at an event a while back and that kicked pretty quickly. So I think that one will be pretty popular. And then we'll have 2 hazy IPAs. So nice. One is called Tropical Eclipse, and it's brewed with 3 Australian hops. So it's Galaxy, Enigma, and Eclipse, which is pretty unique. I feel like the last 2 hops in that aren't used super frequently. So hopefully that's a unique aspect of that beer. And then we have another hazy IPA that we call And That's When Things Got Hazy. And it's a painkiller inspired hazy IPA. So for those that don't know what a painkiller is, it's kind of like a pina colada. It's got pineapple and coconut. And so we bring a lot of pineapple notes through the hops, and then we actually dose it with organic coconut. So it's a pretty tropical IPA, pretty enjoyable. So those are the 5 that we're planning on bringing. We have also Everyday I'm Crumbling, but we're trying to decide what we're doing with it right now. It's actually being entered in a competition. So depending on how it does, it may be at Milwaukee Brew Fest for at least a portion of the fest. I think there's a competition aspect to that. But if it's not needed at this other place, which is the week after Milwaukee Brew Fest, we would bring it to the fest. But we're kind of waiting for feedback. I think we'll hear probably in a few days. So, okay. Yeah.
And then is there any other homebrewers going to be at this event that you know of?
Yeah, actually there are. There's I think it's the Beer Barons of Milwaukee is like a homebrew club. Mm-hmm. And they had a tent there last year. And I saw that they'll be back there this year. And then I have a friend, his name is Jason. He's, I think, affiliated with Beer Barons in Milwaukee, but he's actually kind of in the same position as me, where he's working on creating his own business. But instead of focusing on beer brewing, he's more of like a mead. He makes mead.
Okay.
So his brand is called Off Balance Meadery. He'll be there as well. So those are the I guess us, and then those other 2 are the entities that are homebrewers that I'm aware of. Not sure if anybody else will be there. But.
Oh, cool. Yeah. So as you said, you've been busy. You've been doing a lot of different competitions, and one competition that is coming up that you already kind of found out about was the Wisconsin State Fair. And we saw on your Instagram page, you won some awards. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah. So luckily we caught this. So entries for State Fair, you would think like, okay, State Fair's in August. So like maybe you submit it late July or something like that. But we had to submit stuff like beginning of June or end of May. So it kind of caught us off guard a little bit, but luckily we had time to be able to brew stuff up and have it ready. But we submitted a handful of beers to that, and we had 3 come back with awards. So the best was the Mexican lager, which will be at Brewfest, and that one it was best in its class, and it won a blue ribbon in its division. And then we had, let's see, the Imperial Stout that I talked about that we split. Half of it was French toast. The other half was like a Girl Scout cookie kind of inspired Samoa, like that caramel delight, coconut caramel. and that took third place in the specialty division, and it was so that was a third place. And then we also had a Czech dark lager that was best in its class and got third in its division. So we brought home 3 ribbons, 1 being a blue and 2 being third place finishes. So we're
Wow,
pretty happy about
congrats.
that. You know, being at the state level.
And will we be able to try the beer at the state fair? Is that how it works, or?
No, unfortunately, it won't be. It's just something that you submit, you get your judges' feedback and all of that, and then they just post kind of the awards in the awards hall.
Okay.
There's not
Darn.
gonna be. Yeah.
Well, that's exciting though. And I think another thing that was coming up was your crowdsource winner with MobCraft.
That is right. That's coming up very quickly. So MobCraft, as most people know, does like a crowdsourced vote, looking for ideas of different beers that people want brewed, and then there's like a voting process where people choose which one is the winner. And so in June, they put out a crowdsourced vote that they wanted fall inspired beer ideas so that they could kind of work ahead and have something for early fall. So we submitted a beer that we've actually brewed and we had last year at a festival. And it is a caramel apple pop. So like, you know, those suckers like that you would have as a kid, right?
Yes.
It was a sour. So it's a caramel apple pop sour. And the name that we had was Bobbin for Caramel. So it's kind of like Bobbin for Apples, but instead it's a caramel. And so that won the crowdsource vote for June. And we are going to be brewing with them very soon. And we'll have that hopefully on tap early fall, and we'll be able to celebrate and enjoy that. So
that's so exciting. And we'll definitely be at MobCraft to try it.
Literally.
Probably more than once.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So what's next for Nosey Neighbor then, like in the future?
Yeah, so that is a good question. We are currently in the process, the very beginning process of creating a business plan. I'm meeting with a colleague of mine, and we're kind of just, you know, meeting once a month, trying to put together a plan, kind of a prospectus so that we can make proposals. We're going to need partners. It's not something that I'm going to be able to do all on my own by any stretch of the imagination. So that's kind of what we're doing right now, is just putting together a plan of what's it going to take and where are we going and how do we get there. And so we got a long ways to go. We're not looking to like rush into this, you know, or anything like that, but we're excited. I think as we meet, just the reality is closer and closer. And so right now we're being patient about it and just continuing to brew and get experience and get exposure. But that's ultimately the goal. I would love to be able to get beer out to more people, be able to sell it to them. You know,
Right.
We kind of joke like home brewing is really not a good business strategy. Just hemorrhaging cash. So yeah, anyway, it would be great to be able to make money on it. But yeah, that's where we're at now. Along the way, it's just continuing to make connections at these festivals as we rub elbows and shoulders with other breweries and professionals in the industry. It's just a great opportunity to be able to tap into some of their knowledge and experience. And so we just see that as a win, even as we're doing what we're doing now. So
that'll be exciting to watch you grow and kind of see where this journey takes you.
Yeah, it's scary, but exciting at the same time. And ultimately it's a lot of fun. So I enjoy doing what I'm doing right now. So
well, and like we've said, we've been able to try your beer and it's pretty good.
Pretty good. Really
That's
good.
You guys can talk about it off camera.
Aw. Well, is there anything that we forgot to mention or anything that you wanted to share?
Let's see. So I think we covered most of it.
I know you've been
just
busy with a lot.
Yeah. I think I think we covered a lot. I think that you guys' questions were great. It kind of opened up a good amount of conversation of where we've been, where we are now, where we want to go. So again, I just want to thank you guys for giving the opportunity to have a home brewer on your Market the Brew podcast.
Well, it's been awesome to hear.
Yeah, share what we do. So.
Well, and anyone that's listening, if you go to the Milwaukee Brew Fest, or if you're in any Wisconsin brew festivals, try to find Nosey Neighbor and test out that beer.
That's right.
All right.
We've reached the end of this episode, but there's plenty more to keep you busy. For online source materials and proven case studies delivered right to your inbox, sign up for our mailing list by visiting marketthebrew.com. We'll see you next time on Market the Brew.